Yeah,
So I'm outside.
nice idea. Good idea.
And Curtis, you still are wearing a tie around your neck.
I am.
Well, he never took it off since the last meeting.
No, I just put it on special for you all. You should feel special because you are. Believe me, the rest of my day I'm like lounging around in a button up with the top 2 buttons open. So
Do you have AC at your house?
no. I'm also upstairs. It's pretty hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Phil. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
No.
Oh, you know what? Gordon's not going to be on tonight.
He's not?
Nope.
Where is he?
His son, Craig, I think is his name, is visiting from Ohio.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he's leaving tomorrow, and Gordon hasn't seen him in 2 years, so have a nice time.
His grandson got married on Saturday.
Yes, and I think that's why Craig came. Yeah. How'd you know that? Did you go?
No, but Michael took over all the milking because everybody was gone.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow. Was it at the farm?
No, it was in Manchester, New Hampshire, I think.
Oh, all right. Well, we still have a couple more minutes.
So, but Curtis, you got married to who? I'm sorry, I was not paying attention.
To Gordon's granddaughter.
Oh, good. Good.
That's the rumor, at least.
Okay.
Why don't we just nip this in the bud? Because, you know, it's on YouTube and there are respondents. I did not get married to anyone.
I saw Neil typing away there in the background.
Yeah.
I think Gordon's only missed one meeting before. In my short tenure here, I think he had a little vacation down in Connecticut or something by the ocean, and I think he was gone for a meeting, I think somewhere in there, but.
Yeah, he sent us all nice pictures of.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah. Because that was just last year, I think, wasn't it?
It's a family property on Pat's side, and they try to go down every year.
Yeah. All right, well, it's 5:30. I think we can start. We have some attendees. So Dave, are you ready?
We are ready. I was expecting Rob Andreg, and there's stuff he just popped in right now.
Oh, there. Oh, hi, Rob.
So now we're ready.
Okay, we can start.
He's slow to
good.
connect here, but he's connecting. But you can start on the minutes and the orders. I don't believe the warrants were in your packet, but I sent them separately in a separate email to you. So hopefully everybody saw those. They can get going on that good stuff.
Okay, so let's call the meeting to order at 5:30. And let's see. Do I hear a motion to accept the May 17th minutes as presented?
So moved.
Okay, any second? Phil seconded. All in favor?
Curtis,
Mary, aye.
Still on.
All right. And then we have the orders. Do I hear a motion to?
Mary, you should also accept the minutes for the emergency.
That's next, Phil. That is Dave. That's next, Dave.
Hey, sorry.
Yep. So do I hear a motion to accept the orders through today, June 7th?
So moved.
Thank you, Curtis. A second?
I'll second it. No one else.
Thank you, Phil. All in favor?
Aye.
Well, I have some, we're talking about the warrants now, right?
Yeah, do you have questions?
Yes, yes, I do.
Okay, so let's have a discussion first. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Dave, but my notes are a little cryptic here. On page 2, I was curious as to what buildings we're doing the audits on with by Earthshare, it looks like. Is that one building or is that 2?
That was, the $600 was for the rec center.
Oh,
But
great.
they've also have done Damon Hall and the library, and we're just awaiting the audit reports on that.
Okay. Okay. And the other one is just a question you don't know. But on page 4, we're spending $7,000, almost $8,000 on the ProGuard gel for keeping dust on. I went looking for the product sheet for that to see if it's good stuff, or with all the work we're doing with ditching and water, how do.
Bill, I lost you on the product here. Say that again.
On page 4, innovative municipal products, we're spending, it looks like, about $4,500 and $3,800 on a ProGuard product for dust control. I went looking for the spec sheet on that to see what chemicals, if any, well, obviously there are chemicals, what makes it up, and whether it's actually lethal or good for the environment.
Basically chloride, Phil. So we apply that. When we don't, we get quite a few phone calls just to keep the dust down on the roads.
Sure.
We have about, I'm going to go off the top of my head, but I think we spend about 25, 30 grand on that a year.
Okay.
Every time we grade the road, once it's graded, we apply it.
No, I know you do. I'm just talking about the product sheet. And if if it's just chloride, then that's what it is. That's fine.
Yeah, otherwise I'm gonna trust Bill on this as to what he's purchasing, but that's what it's for, and that's what it's applied for, and
Okay. Okay.
had it for a couple of years now.
Okay. My last question is on page 5, Otter Creek Engineering. Looks like we're still paying them for the Mace Hill work. I thought that was water under the bridge.
It is. He stuck in a last invoice. I questioned him on it. I almost didn't pay it, but at the end of the day, I don't think we would have received a FEMA reimbursement without him. So I did forward this along and approve payment on it. So.
Okay. Thank you, Curtis, for correcting my.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave.
Anything else? Anyone at all? No. Okay, so discussion's ended. All in favor accepting the orders through June 7th?
Curtis, aye.
Phil.
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Going through the warrants is a lot quicker when Mary gets to ask Dave her questions before.
So now we have, I'm looking for a motion to accept the minutes of the public health hearing on May 17th as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Curtis. Is there a second?
I will second, but I have a comment about, there's a typo in the last paragraph. And I don't know if that can be corrected before it's sent into whatever record, wherever it goes. So the words are fine, but we need to add some punctuation.
I thought I followed your guidance there, Martha. Did I go astray?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
So right after Gordon Richardson, I guess We either need to start a new sentence with although a formal vote on the motion was not made, it was indicated. Okay, we
That's,
just have
that's
all
the-
those sentences in one big mush.
that's the way it was originally. You told me that was a sentence fragment.
It was.
Ah!
You had it all by itself. All right, can I just send that to you before it goes into the permanent record? Or you don't care if it's,
You should give it a wing. If you're gonna amend it, it should be in front of the entire board here. So if you can
Well,
work your magic and wave your wand, that would be great.
I'm not changing any of the wording, but, all right, the last paragraph. Phil Hobby made a motion to accept the health order into the record as evidence, and the motion was seconded by Gordon Richardson, period. New sentence. Although a formal vote on the motion was not made, it was indicated during the hearing that the Hartland Board of Health did have a copy of both the emergency health order and the inspection report, period.
I will accept the change to the motion. No amendment required.
Okay, great.
And then are you still seconding that, Martha?
Yes,
Okay, then all in favor?
Curtis, aye.
Bill on.
Martha, I.
Mary, aye. So it's all in favor.
Is there a comment after although?
Oh, my God.
No,
Okay.
no comment.
So now we're to adjustments to the agenda. Does anyone have an adjustment they'd like to make to the agenda? And if so, I guess we have to do it by action, by motion. Anybody? No, Dave? You have, no.
Good.
Okay, so no adjustments. We're accepting it as the agenda. Do I have to make a motion to accept the agenda as presented? They do that in one of my work meetings. No? Okay. Public comments. We have some public attending, and if you would like to say something right now, let's see, I guess you raise your hand. You know how to do that down in the toolbar?
Mary,
Yeah,
I would like to comment that the flags in Hartland and North Hartland look lovely. And I'd like to thank the road crew for putting those up.
okay. Well, we will pretend that you are a member of the public. So anybody else? I don't see any raised hands. I hope. Of course, you could put something in the chat,
No,
but we can't.
chat doesn't work for the attendees.
Oh, okay.
They need to raise the hand and then they're unmuted by Kyle.
Okay,
I will also speak as a member of the public, and just to remind the board that some residents in North Hartland have organized a visioning event for North Hartland that will be next Sunday at 3 p.m.
okay.
Sorry, this Sunday, this coming Sunday
Oh, this coming Sunday.
at 3 p.m.
Is there any free food?
Unless you bring it, Phil,
No.
you're welcome to.
Well,
It's only free for everyone else.
Ah, okay.
Did you call this a visioning event, Curtis?
At this exact moment, I did.
Oh, okay. I hadn't heard that before.
all right. Well, thank you. I think we are done with the public comments that the select board members horned in on. New business. Sumner's Falls Management Plan by the Conservation Commission. And Rob Anderegg is here to tell us what's going on. We've all gotten a copy of your plan, Rob. So go ahead.
Okay, so a few years back, we made a management plan for the summer cell property, and the select board approved that. It was sort of a 10-year plan of what we're planning to do with that property. We're now trying to do a similar thing for Sumner Falls. And the timing here is important because the dams along the Connecticut River are being relicensed. And so there's an opportunity here for towns along the river to have input into what are the conditions for relicensing. And there may also be some money coming from the relicensing as part of the relicensing process. They may require the companies that operate the dams to put more of the money back into the communities along the river, more of their profit. So there's potentially some funding here as well. So we started this, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago. And we sent out a call to the listserv for anyone who had thoughts about what we should do with Sumner Falls, or things they liked or things they didn't like, to send us some comments. And we collected, there was quite a lot of feedback, actually. I was pleasantly surprised. And so then the commission has been working with those comments from the public and with some of our own ideas. And we came up with this list of draft recommendations. So the way I kind of envision this happening is that the management plan has several parts to it. It has a description of what the property is like. It has what are currently allowed or disallowed uses. It has recommendations for what we might want to do over the next 10-year period to either improve the property or change, make new trails or whatever we want to think about. And so what we're doing at this stage is just trying to come up with that list of recommendations. We've had now public input, Conservation Commission input. Now we're asking for your input. And then we'll probably take it back to the public again and say, here's where we are now. Does anybody have further ideas? And then we would come up with some kind of a final list of recommendations that would be incorporated into this management plan. So that's kind of where this document came from. Yeah, so you can think of this as kind of a strategic plan for the next 10 years on that property. What do we want to do? And I don't know if you have that in front of you. I also have it. I could probably figure out how to share it on my screen if you wanted to look at it.
We have it, Rob.
Okay, so you have it. So I'm happy to answer any questions about what we were thinking about this. And if you have thoughts about, oh, that's a terrible idea, or how about this as a different idea, we'd be happy to have any input from you guys.
Everybody, Phil, Curtis, Martha?
Rob, I looked at the tax maps today, and if I understand, the property is 55 acres.
Yes.
And I drove over there today to just, because I hadn't been there for a couple of years. And it feels like the management plan is directed at the entryway and the parking and the launch areas for the canoes and the portage area. I don't know where the rest of the acreage is, and does the plan address all of that property?
Yeah, so some of the property is pretty inaccessible. It's a very steep drop along the river in most places, except there at the beach. The descent from level to where the river is very steep, and you can't do much with it. Mm-hmm. But I think there is, as you start to drive in, just on your left, Shepherd's Brook is down kind of low there, and then there's a plateau that runs back. It's a pretty substantial piece of land up there that nobody uses for anything. There's no trail on it, but it's pretty woods. We could easily put a trail there, but we just never have done that. So one of the items in our list was to make some kind of a comprehensive plan for trails through the property. There are also some really interesting historical, like stone foundations and stuff like that, cellar holes. There's an old road that goes, as you're driving in on the main road, there's a road that goes off to the right, and it's all overgrown now. But again, it would easily be something that could be cleared and made into a trail that goes up to some foundations. And if we Jay Boeri is like Mr. Know Everything about Sumner Falls.
Yeah.
And so in terms of the history, if we could kind of pick his brain and get some of that stuff down on paper, I think that we could have people learn a lot more about the history of the falls. I mean, there were dams there and locks there and mills there. There's all kinds of interesting stuff. And you can see it if you know when to look. You have to look when the water's low, which is typically in the fall. But yeah, so the plan is to try to make not only the pieces that aren't being used, but the pieces that are being used more.
Okay.
So we want to encourage people to use it. And to do that, we want to try and make it more welcoming, make it feel safer, make it feel like a place where you could come and be comfortable.
Great.
So that's a lot of what the recommendations are trying to do.
Sure. Two things. One, if you're on the New Hampshire side on River Road, there is a plaque just opposite there that talks about the ferry crossing. So yeah, there is a lot of history right there with the mills. The second is, when you mention the beach area, is that the area where the canoes and kayaks are put in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really the only access to the river. That little stretch there from where the portage, the canoe portage starts to just below. There's kind of like that gravelly beach that runs down for a while. And then it starts to get steep again down below. I think there's something like 0.8 of a mile of river frontage on the property, but only a small part of it, maybe a quarter of that, is accessible.
Yeah. Okay, because of the rapids and so on. Something that Dave has drilled into our heads over time. Today, as I look at the picnic table and the grill thing, things were pretty trashed.
Yes.
So I was sad to see it, I mean, I see in the plan that going forward, we would like to improve that picnic area and the parking area. So just a comment that I hope we can do it, and I hope it somehow doesn't get trashed.
Yeah, well, and I think that trashing, having it look all trashy like that, contributes to the sense of this is a place that isn't really, and nobody's really paying attention here. And so it's a safe place for drug deals or whatever. So I think that if it looked more maintained, the public would feel more comfortable and would feel safer there.
Great, good.
One of the things that we have talked about and we included in these recommendations is trying to have some people from town volunteer to be stewards of the property. And they would regularly go down and visit. They would look the place over. If something was amiss, they could report that back either to us or to Dave or to whoever seemed like the right person. And again, it would kind of help with the place feeling like somebody was paying attention to it.
Right.
On Eshqua Bog, Dean and Susan Greenberg are volunteer stewards. They're over there a couple times a week, just walking around, making sure everything's okay. And I think that if we had something like that at Sumner, it would really help a lot. And it would get some more people engaged in taking care of the thing. So.
Yeah, great. Great plan. Thanks for to everyone that worked on it.
Martha, you want to ask anything? You're muted. You're muted.
Mary and I went down there this afternoon just to look around, and I agree that just the overall feel looks pretty neglected. And I think, like Rob said, it's kind of a downward spiral. If things looked better, probably it would help people respect the area more. And I don't know what else did you think, Mary?
Yeah, I agree. I've got three things I want to ask you about, Rob, but I want to hear from Curtis first. Curtis, have you visited down there and eaten plants, eaten your way through there? Have you?
Yeah. Good trout lilies come up nice and early in the season. But is there actually any indication that untoward activities are taking place there? Or is this just a fear that we have?
As far as I know, there's nothing been demonstrated in that regard, except for dumping. You know, there's a lot of trash that gets taken down there and just pitched over the hill. Connor and I, when one green up day, pulled 14 tires out of the, off the edge of the road. And so there certainly is that, but I don't have any evidence. Like when we've done green up, or we do a September cleanup as well, and we're not finding a lot of drug paraphernalia. We're not finding condoms. We're not finding evidence of that. But there's a reputation in town that used to be a big party place. And a lot of the people who have been here a long time still view it like, oh yeah, you don't want to go down there after dark because there's rowdy parties going on. And yeah, so I don't know. Dave, maybe, do you know of any activity, illegal activity or unsavory activity going on down there?
I haven't heard of anything lately, but I would suspect that, late at night, there may be some conjugating going on down there. I think that there's a couple places in town. I certainly, let me put it this way. I certainly have not heard it to be the reputation as some big party place, or, that's where a lot of bad things are happening. But it is kind of dark. It is a little out of the way. It is, kind of out of sight, out of mind. So, that along with a couple other places in town, I suspect there's some things going on, but it's certainly not one of the top 3 places that I hear of in town that some things are going on.
Everyone knows the real party place is in North Hartland. Duh. No, but so Rob, I was reading this and maybe I wasn't doing a good job of visualizing the improvement or the recommendations in the actual space. So maybe you can clarify a few things for me. First of all, I like just all of these changes would be amazing. Like, of course, that's goes without saying. It would be wonderful to do everything we could to make that place as amazing as possible. It sounds to me that many of the changes you're proposing are at the entrance, at the where it meets Route 5, and that is a topographically challenged piece of land in terms of if we wanted to make any parking there, or even like the hills are pretty steep on both sides of that land. So am I visualizing that incorrectly, where when you're talking about these things, are you talking about deeper than that?
Yeah, so I think that at the entrance on Route 5, what I would imagine is parking for maybe 3 or 4 cars.
Yeah.
So I'm not imagining a big parking lot there. And I think that you could do it like right now, if you come into the place, there's a gate right in the road. And just to the right of that, before you get to the gate, there's a space. And I think with a little pushing and shoving, you could flatten that out and make a space that was big enough for a few cars. And then have the gate maybe be a little further down the road, just, 10, 20, 30 feet, so that it gives you a little more space in the front there. And then in the winter time, plow that space, because people do want to go down there in winter. They want to cross country ski or snowshoe or hike in. And it's a beautiful spot in the wintertime. But once, if Route 5 gets plowed, then all you've got is this huge bank. There's no place to put a car. And so one of the recommendations is to try and make it a 4-season space by at least having wintertime parking there at the entrance. I don't think it makes any sense to plow the road because that's where all the fun is snowshoeing or skiing down the road. But just plowing a place so that people could park. So that's kind of my vision for the front. And then down below, we already have 2 parking spaces and picnic area kind of things, but they're not very well marked off. And I think we could probably have a few more spaces for cars, but not a lot. Right now, if you go down there in a busy time, there'll be cars parked along the road because there's not enough spaces for people to park. And they always go down and park on the beach in the handicapped spot, which is annoying as all get out. But I think if we marked out the spaces that you could park, or put some little rail fences in to sort of outline, here's where the picnic area is, we could probably put in a few more parking spaces in each of those areas, and that would be enough.
Dave, how does
Yeah, go ahead.
how does the prospect of keeping that little spur right off of 5 in the middle of that corner clear of snow during the winter sound to you?
I did make a comment to Rob earlier. I don't like it.
Sounds tough. It sounds tough.
Outside that gated area. I guess I wasn't aware that the idea was to ski along the road, but I mean, if you were truly to make this a 4-season area, we would need to get beyond that gated area and get more towards the parking area itself. It's a makeshift parking area now. If we had a police force, we'd probably kind of shoo them out. Mm-hmm. Most of them are trying to get fishing in the springtime, and they park there. We don't mess with it, but it's certainly not the best situation. They're kind of risking their own car as they park there.
Now there is space about what you described, maybe 30 feet past the gate where it is now, where you have the big ravine off to the left, the big hill on to the right, and then you have a level area that comes out. And I wonder if there might be space to add a little bit of parking there, or if that would have detrimental effects on the geography of the area.
Are you asking me or Dave?
I was speculating. If you have thoughts, you're welcome to share them. If you don't, that's also fine.
I haven't actually looked at that. I think that what I was trying to do was minimize the amount of work that would be required for plowing down the road, because I think that if we had parking somewhere that people could park safely in winter, we don't need to plow the road. But if we need to plow the road a little way to get to a parking spot that's easier to deal with, I'm open to that. We could talk about that, and then have the gate be beyond that point.
Do we have a good river access during the winter time in town?
Phil, is there a place down by the mouth of Lulls Brook that,
Not in the wintertime.
Okay.
You know, and it's really, there's not much water there to actually put in. You're really walking through the brook to get to the river. That's another area that a lot of people in town would love to see, a portage area to go from Sumner Falls to Lull Brook, or Lull Brook down to the Windsor Bridge. And that's real popular stretches there.
Yeah, I would say in general, I could be really supportive and get behind developing some access to the river during winter, because that sounds like a really great thing that you don't get to see many places, and it's a real like nice vista and landscape that showing it off would be wonderful. It sounds like there might be real logistical issues with keeping that clear, given the nature of that space, that entrance to Sumner Falls. So
Sure.
aside, I especially love the parts in this plan that merge together the real life and the virtual resources. Like, I think that would be really nice addition to the area. And in general, I would love to see this plan be implemented, but it sounds like there might be some real significant roadblocks with ongoing maintenance of making it a 4-season.
Sure. And Curtis, remember that Rob had said this is a 10-year plan.
Oh yeah.
So we're going to have priorities within their priorities,
Yeah.
to what we can do financially and so on.
For sure. Thanks.
So I have a couple of questions here. So Rob, can you get Jay Bowery to write everything down like soon? Because he may be the only person who's got all that information, you know?
we've tried that.
Oh.
And I think the better way to do it is to invite him to give a talk on Sumner Falls and then have somebody secretly record it and then transcribe it. He has great maps and visuals, and I think he would share those, but getting him to write something down has not been easy to do.
Okay.
Now, there are a lot of resources. The Historical Society has quite a lot of information too. But again, it's not written in a coherent, sort of comprehensive way about Sumner Falls. It's a sentence here or there, a paragraph out of this book, and kind of a story that they heard about something.
Right.
So it would really need some work, but it's certainly doable. And it's so interesting. We had Jay do a talk down at the falls a couple of years ago. And we did it in October because the water, I think it was October, because the water levels are typically low then. And you can see where the locks were, and you can see the pins where the dam was, and you can see a lot of really interesting stuff in the rocks right there. And Jay had brought some big maps, and he showed, here's where the mill was, and here's when they moved the logs through. This is where the logs went, and it was fascinating. But it'll take a little work to get it put together.
Yeah, some oral history that
Sure. You couple that with a pretty rich history of the Lydia Bridge, of the ferry that was there, the first bridge burning down, the second bridge being burnt by Norwich because they were pissed off at Hanover. There's a lot of history in that stretch of the river. And I imagine the Plainfield Historical Society, if someone was willing, could probably find some data over there as well.
Yeah.
And that for most of the Connecticut, the boundary between Vermont and New Hampshire is the high water mark on the Vermont side. But at Sumner Falls, it's not that. It's out in the channel somewhere. And it's because of some historical, I don't know what, some event happened, and the Supreme Court had to get involved and say, okay, we're going to draw the line right here. And, it's the only place on the river where the boundary is different. And, it would be great to let people know that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Rob, I'm sorry, Mary, May.
Go ahead.
Rob, you mentioned the 20-year or longer hydro dam license renewal process that you've had presentations about. What do you see? How do you see this plan working or dovetailing in with that piece, that work?
Yeah, so the Connecticut River Conservancy is obviously very interested in this relicensing. And so Kathy Erfer came and talked to the Conservation Commission about it. And she has been talking to anybody who will listen because what they're doing, the companies that own the dams make a lot of money out of the electricity they're generating. But the water is not really their water, it's our water, or it's New Hampshire's water. But it belongs, the river belongs to the communities along the river. And so one of the big pushes, there are actually two things that they're doing. One is they're trying to make the flow of the water a little more like it would be naturally. So instead of having the dams hold back water, a lot of water, and then let a huge amount of water go through so they can generate a lot of power, the idea is to let water go through more continuously so that it behaves like what the river would be like without the dam. And that way you don't get really high fluctuations of water. It's a much more consistent flow, which is better for the flora and fauna along the riverbank. So that's one of the things they're pushing for. The other is to say that, if these companies are going to use this public resource to make money, they should be returning more of that money to the towns along the river for improving recreational use of the river. And so they're trying to make a case that more of the profits should be returned. And so there may be an opportunity for towns along the river to present, we have a management plan, here it is, and it says we need to do these things to improve recreational use of the river. So can we get some money to do that? Now, the public comment period for the relicensing is either just started or will soon start. And I think it goes for a year. So Kathy was encouraging us when we have a management plan, even if it's only a draft management plan, to send that in and say, here's how we view Hartland using this riverfront property. And then later on, if there is money available, we can refer to that and say, we said back in 2021, this is what we were hoping to do. And if there's money available now in 2025, we'd like some. So I think that's where the management plan and the relicensing can overlap.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Oh, okay. It froze there for a minute, so I didn't know.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, thank you so much, Rob. Anybody else before I ask a couple things? So I noticed the erosion, Rob, going down, straight down that beach area to the water. You have a plan? I know you want to fix parking and everything, but do you put water bars or something in there? Because that must be bringing a lot of sand or silt into the river.
Yeah, and that's a really good question. We did not address that in the plan, but maybe we should. And if you've ever been down there in the early spring, when the water is really high in the spring, all kinds of junk washes down the river and collects there at that beach area. And so it looks just like a war zone down there. And the town goes down and cleans it up. And they haul away a tremendous amount of logs and sticks and brush and crap every spring to clean it up and make it usable for the rest of the year. The erosion is a good question. And we could certainly try and make some recommendations around that.
Yeah,
So Mary, I can shed a little light on that because the highway crew actually goes down and grades that. And I have spoken to Craig Carmody, who does the river actions or does the river kayaking and canoeing out of there. He and I have spoken about it, but again, this may go to the underlying issue here is that we will get to it, but obviously as we go through April and May, Sunrise Falls is not a priority. Getting to the roads and the spring cleanup of the roads is. So, at the moment that'll need to take a kind of a back seat just simply because we have roads throughout town that have the same similar issue. If you look at the entranceway into the little beach area that you're talking about, there is a ditch on the right-hand side. I think there's some, and that ditch actually kind of goes along the, kind of follows the grass line there. Although there is kind of a clump of things that's in that ditch, which I think is creating the water to go down towards the waterway. But, again, I'll dig into this a little bit, but, the town has taken on Sunrise Falls and it's a tremendous asset, but, we don't, it's kind of like the walking path, you take on an asset and you create it, but the resources to maintain it and to keep it up, were not adjusted. So, you're dealing with, we've added a highway guy, but that was for, to allow Bill to manage and do what he's doing. You essentially still kind of have that same, makeup of a town highway crew. I've talked to John, Leonard a little bit, and I've even talking to Rob Anderegg a little bit, as to, it's truly kind of a rec responsibility, not the road, but some of what you're talking about. And we could beef things up there. But again, we got things going on town highway roads that look similar to that. And that's where the priority is until, probably 2 weeks from now. Unless, we make an adjustment to, how we want to manage this and some of the things that we want out of our assets. And then, it's a different question.
Well, I wasn't asking because I thought that it needed to be addressed immediately, but certainly sometime this year would be helpful. I think it presents possibly a trip hazard because it's developing into a gully, I would say. So another thing is I like that idea of the stewards, like the Nature Conservancy has, Rob, because I think when people actually have a defined role, they're appointed or whatever, they really then take responsibility for it and on a regular basis rather than just ask for a volunteer to check. You know what I mean? I think that could be really valuable. The other thing is I would like to see the first two parts that you mentioned of your management plan. You said there was something and then
yes.
something,
Yep.
That would be good if you could send us that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
All right.
Those are also sort of in draft form, but when the property was conveyed to the town, there were certain restrictions on what it should be used for and what it shouldn't be used for. So, there's not supposed to be any development. It's supposed to be primarily a recreation area. So there's a lot of stuff that's in there. So that's part of the pieces that you don't have, and I will send that to you.
Great, thank you. Anybody from the public, Martha, do you want to say something?
I wanted to ask Rob if this list of 10 is prioritized in any way, or
No.
if that is something that your group would address.
Yeah, so I think this list of 10 is very preliminary and very draft at this point. So we're seeking input from you guys. We're seeking probably another round of input from the public. And then we would come up with a list of, here are the recommendations in no particular order. But then in order to implement the plan, this would have to again come to the select board because, you know, we don't have any money, or we couldn't cut down a tree there without permission from the select board. So what we would probably do is prioritize the list, and then as we start implementing, we would come back to the select board and say, you know, we'd like to spend $50 on a new picnic table and get your approval on all of those steps. But certainly if you want to be involved, if the select board wants to be involved in the prioritization, we'd love that. We'd, you know, the more engagement we have, either from you guys or from the public, the better.
Thank you. Yeah, so I want to see if anybody from the public who's on tonight would like to weigh in with an opinion. And Dave, how can they do that again? Just push the raise hand button and then Kyle unmute them?
Correct. Once their hand goes up, you can identify who it is, and then Kyle will unmute them.
Okay. Nobody seems to have anything urgent. So it looks like there's nothing really to hear a motion on. I didn't, you said on the agenda possible motion, but I don't, this is a draft, isn't it, Rob?
Yes.
Yeah, so Dave,
And
what
the
do you?
final plan would have to come back to you anyway.
You're
So
right.
you'll have a chance to have a motion then if you want one.
Yeah, I think I didn't know if there was any solid, something that you wanted to make a motion on back to Rob, or, I wasn't, that's why it says possible.
Yeah,
Wasn't sure maybe what Rob was going to ask for, or whether it was like, the four of you were like, okay, yeah, we like it, but this has got, we make a motion to, you put this back into, something, or left you room to make a motion or make comments or anything like that.
So Rob, just to put a point on what Dave just said, I guess, I think many people have said getting a sense of priorities from the public and the Conservation Commission would be a really valuable thing to have the next time we see it. And then I also think it would be really great if there could be some sense about how the priorities could be, the impact enacting the priorities would have on budget. So some sense of what the budget of some of these different priorities might be, and the time frame in which you would like to get them, so that we can really reason through incorporating investment into Sumner Falls as a more regular thing that the town does.
Okay.
yeah, that's smart. Okay, anybody else? And hearing none, I think we can close this discussion, and thank you very much, Rob, for your time and your effort on all making this, wanting to make this a beautiful spot for the town.
Always a pleasure.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thanks for your attention.
Okay, so Dave, now we're moving to Old Home Day. Is there anybody, or are you going to talk about that?
That's me.
Okay.
So normally Old Home Day does not come to the select board. It used to be an Old Home Day committee, but it kind of moves forward and happens, and we make it happen, and everybody enjoys it. last year it came in front of the select board because we needed to cancel it. And I felt as though obviously canceling Old Home Day was better coming from you folks than from anybody else. So Curtis, this is one that did come to you guys. I guess, it's coming to you again predominantly because of the pandemic. And, I just wanted to make sure, my own estimate is we get like 2,000 people there, or, it's a fairly large crowd. Between the parade and the fireworks, maybe not that much, but certainly fireworks, there's a fair amount of people. And even for the parade, particularly surrounding Damon Hall down to the rec center, there's quite a few people. So certainly wanted to make sure everybody felt comfortable about this. But, internally, we've made quite a few decisions on the pandemic, and we were kind of, this is something that needs to be planned in advance. It's not something you can pull together in just a couple of weeks. So kind of the marching orders to John and the rec center was, let's plan on it. And it's easier to pull the plug if we need to pull the plug on it than it is to try and, get to a certain point and figure out where the state was or where the town was, and then try and move forward. So that's what we did. We were kind of, again, it was literally on the fence, although the state put out their 4-phase reopening plan, I don't know, maybe 6-8 weeks ago, which did indicate that they were going to be completely reopened by the 4th of July. And that the mask mandate, the mandate was going to go away. It was going to be a recommendation, but basically any number of people could conjugate. And again, that was set for the 4th of July. John and I were a little surprised at that point at the guidance. But as we move forward, the vaccinations and, the reopening moved much quicker than we expected. And we're at a point here where they have indicated that they're going to open up sooner than the 4th of July. They're going to open up when we get to 80% vaccinations of the public that's capable of being vaccinated. That's only one shot. But again, that's the guidance. As of yesterday afternoon, we were at like 79.15%. That was, yesterday. So we have today and the next couple of days, but certainly I expect us to reach 80% much sooner than July 1st at this point in time. And again, that opens the state of Vermont to unlimited numbers to conjugate, and going from a mandate to a recommendation. And on top of that, the CDC has essentially said, if you are vaccinated, you can essentially do as you please. The fully vaccinated population of Vermont is coming along, and I expect us to be easily at 75% by July 1st, which is a significant number of the population. The CDC is essentially saying can conjugate without a mask and without social distancing. So when we heard that, I don't know, maybe 2.5, 3 weeks ago, with John, we basically started to kind of put our plans into motion, or fuller motion than what we had. And we're at a point where I think that we know enough information as to where we're at and where we're going and what we're capable of doing, and what some of the surrounding towns are doing, and what they're doing at some of the sporting events, that we feel comfortable enough to make the recommendation to move forward with Old Home Day. Just like at this date last year, we made the recommendation to basically cancel it. We're looking to move forward with that. And, I'm basically looking for an endorsement for the board on that, unless people feel strongly that this is something that should not occur.
Okay, Bill.
Sorry to go first. I keep doing that. First, an observation. I attended First Friday this past Friday evening in White River Junction, and people were smiling. People were wearing masks, not wearing masks. It just was a beautiful night, and I think Old Home Days, I'm ready to have it. Dave, today there was a lot of emails floating around trying to clarify, and I would like to clarify with you now. You talked of parade and fireworks, and I always think of the parade, the gathering behind the rec center, and then the fireworks, and maybe the evening concert. But are you eliminating that kind of after the gathering, after the parade, or is that still there?
So I did get an email from Kurt Peterson, and so the answer is we're not really actively pursuing vendors, that we had afterwards, but certainly Rob Andrag and Kurt have requested or inquired about having informational booths. So we think that that's going to be okay. We are going to have food vendors. We will have 2 food trucks, and the snowmobile group will be there doing their sausages and other things. There will be a band after the parade, kind of a traditional band playing. That's going to be kind of the extent of the after parade activities.
Okay. Are there,
And the fireworks will basically be the fireworks, and we are planning on music as well for kind of an undetermined amount of time prior, but we're working on making that come together.
excellent, thank you.
Curtis, do you have any questions?
Sounds fun.
How about you, Martha?
It is fun, Curtis.
Okay, so it looks like we need a motion. Is that right, Dave? You want a motion?
Sure, motion would be good.
Okay.
I
Phil,
think
you have-
Martha has to get it because she was the one who moved to cancel it last year.
Ooh,
Well, I thought I had that job last year.
Yeah, I think it was
And
a
then Martha
group,
second.
it was
Yeah.
a group decision.
With great enthusiasm, I make the motion that we go forward with Old Home Days this July 4th.
okay. Is
I'm
there,
gonna leave out all the pieces and just let that come and fall into place.
is there a second?
Martha?
Yes, I would be happy to second.
Great. So we have chance for discussion, some more discussion. So Dave, this is going to be on actual Sunday, July 4th.
Yes, and actually, thank you for bringing that up. Just as a side note, we had moved it to 10 o'clock a couple of years ago due to the heat. We moved it back to 11 o'clock this year only because of church services, to kind of avoid church services. So hopefully this will occur afterwards. If it gets to be like today and it's 94 degrees, we'll have to revisit that and maybe bump the time. But at the moment, we're trying to work with the churches, and it's an 11 o'clock start time.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so anything else? Are we ready to vote on this?
Dave, I hope you get really good karma for that.
All in favor of the motion as presented?
Curtis, aye.
Bill, I.
Martha, aye.
Me, aye. So all in favor, great. And motion carried. Let's see, I gotta look at my agenda. My iPad's always. All right, so we have old business now, allocation of recreation department grant revenue. We're gonna have a discussion, which I'm going to guess is going to be led by the estimable David Ormiston.
So I spaced for a brief moment. So did you guys vote on your motion on the last agenda item?
Oh, yes, we did.
Okay. So you're now on the allocation of the rec department?
Yes, we are.
So yes, that is me, although it's, it's in your town manager update, and we broached this subject at the May 3rd meeting. I think that's the date. I pulled back on it a little bit just to ensure that, it coincided with what we were able to do with the grant money. There was just a little bit of a hesitation on my part on putting it into, pulling it and putting it into reserve accounts. But I've spoken with the officials, and they have said that, we did have the loss of revenue. We were granted the money, it's ours. And the use of which I was describing was acceptable. And as I mentioned in the May 3rd meeting, and again in the town manager update, this was grant funding that John Leonard did seek out. It was granted to the Recreation Department in the spirit of what the money was for, was to promote recreational activity and inclusion. So I think that in talking with John and putting that money to the best use, also affordability was another word that was used. In order to ensure that we can do that, we talked about putting this money in. And by the way, the reason why we're doing this now is I wanted to ensure that the budget was going to come out with at least break even without the $42,000. So that's kind of it's kind of hard to put money aside if you've got a deficit of $42,000. And I can say that we will end, or it appears that we're going to end in a surplus greater than $42,000. So I feel very safe in making this move and asking the select board to make this move, is to allow us to use this for recreational purposes and put it in. We have two accounts that three that I'm talking about. Two we use quite regularly, and those are for scholarships for the recreation department. We have two, and back in May 3rd, I did give you breakouts or fund balances of these accounts. We have one account that is for basic general scholarships for the general recreation programs. That was depleted a little bit over the last year because we get some funding for that. We get donations from the Covered Bridges Half Marathon in Woodstock. That didn't happen this year. It was on hold last I knew for this year. So the proposal is to take $10,000 of this and put it towards the future scholarships for kids to, be able to use the recreation programs. We have a second scholarship program that is strictly for the ski runners program. It's the winter program for skiing. It's one of our most popular programs through the school. We take a half day, I think it's Tuesdays, and we bus the kids over to Suicide 6. A lesson is involved. We did start a scholarship program again with money from the half marathon, although that was kind of a one-time shot. We don't use quite as much money as the general program, but again, we're requesting that $5,000 be put to this scholarship for the ski runners. We're also talking about $7,000 to be used for, it was going into a third account, which is special projects for resurfacing and or playground equipment. And then the last recommendation that we're making, again, to the same account, but, again, kind of designating or purposing the money for a separate use, $20,000 for the walking path and or fencing for our tennis courts and basketball courts. And that rounds out the $42,000. Talking with John, we think that this is a good purpose of this money, and helps look forward and to help keep some of this equipment in pretty good shape, and also allow for kids to participate, particularly if they're not able to afford it, and families not able to afford it.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions for Dave? Martha?
No, I think it sounds like he's put a lot of thought into where that money should go.
Thank you. Curtis? You have any thoughts?
I'm on board, and tell John thanks for his work.
How about you, Phil?
I'm excited to see the Foster Meadow piece in there, and the other items are really good. Dave, yesterday was the virtual covered bridges. And I know a bunch of people that were running. Do you know if John is expecting any money out of that, even though they weren't doing a SAG stop?
I think if we were expecting any, it was limited. I don't think we were expecting money this year. And again, it kind of, year after year, we kind of have to wait to see how things sugar out and how they did overall. But I think that we weren't expecting anything this year either.
Right. Okay. And how's John recovering?
What's that?
How is John recovering?
I haven't heard anything otherwise, so I have not seen him, so I'm assuming that means all is good.
Right.
Okay, so I know Neil Allen would like to say something. So Kyle, could you unmute Neil, please? Okay, Neil.
Hi, I was just gonna say they did the race, and I think they actually had more people registered this time than they expected they would. So I'm not sure how well they did, but I do know that they had quite a lot of people signed up and participating. So hopefully that means that you guys will get some funds out of it.
Yeah, that would be nice. Thank you so much.
Yep.
So what I wanted to add to this discussion was I think I side with Gordon on this, that maybe all we need to do to the walking path is keep it mowed. I went down there yesterday with a friend of mine, and it's the objections that we have heard before about where the trees were planted does not make any sense to me. You can just walk along, instead of the bank side of where the trees are planted, walk on the other side, and it's all good. I think if it's mowed regularly, maybe a little bit shorter than the rest of the grass, it'll be very easy to see. And we went down to the brook, walked in the brook. That was really nice. The only thing is the entrance, the path to the brook is really very overgrown, I guess. That could be maybe opened up a little bit with a weed whacker or something. But I did not walk on the part of the path around the soccer field. Maybe that needs more work. But I'm just wondering, Dave, if we could think about redirecting that money, maybe instead of the walking path, which I do want to maintain. I'm not suggesting that I think that's important, but maybe some of the money after fencing could go to Sumner Falls.
To go to what?
Sumner Falls. Put aside for that. I don't know when this money has to be spent by.
Yeah, I would keep it would keep it where, I would keep it away from Sumner's Falls at the moment, until we get that into more of, kind of a recreation area. You know, and it's, you know, the recreational use can be used by the kids and some of the other stuff. I guess I'm gonna come back to, you know, my main, you know, it's almost like why we haven't tackled the North Hartland School yet, is that because haven't really kept the rec center or the activity center in the shape that we need to do it. So I'm, to be honest with you, I'm 96% on board with what Rob Andrade offered, and I think that we need to move in that direction. Although I think that as we do that, we need to make sure that our present assets are also kept where they need to be. And there's, you know, where I come, and I'll be honest, where I come down with this walking path, we either want it or we don't. You know, it looks overgrown. You know, not only where we've planted the trees, you know, does the path stop, but along Route 5 in that area that we cut down all the trees there, the path, there's a good 125 yards there that there's no path. You know, so, you know, it's really kind of overgrown in the area by the community garden and over by, you know, where they do the tractor pull for the 4th of July. So it needs to be addressed. And I think that, you know, again, I've kind of, you know, waiting for us to have, you know, the ability to focus on this and do it right. But it's going to go one way or the other. You know, we can't just do a 25-yard section and say, okay, this is good, and call it a day. It obviously needs attention. So we need to attend to it and make it what it should be, or, you know, let's just let it go grass and people can walk around Foster Meadows along, you know, the cut area, and, you know, just let them do that, you know, rather than just kind of straddling this, you know, what at this point is almost a, you know, remnants of a path, you know, and say that that's acceptable. So I, you know, I'd prefer the board either, you know, we're either doing the path or we're not.
Dave, could you just briefly say how the $20,000 would improve the path? I mean, what would be the process to upgrade it? I mean, it sounds like 20,000 sounds like a lot.
So the 20,000 is, and again, I've got the 20,000 for path and or fencing, but the path is based upon a $20,000 estimate that we got to do the path. So a lot of that is the hard pack material that we spend a fair amount on. So you're talking, you know, I think it's a mile and a half. I'm trying to think what the length of that is, but you know, it's not the full length of a road, but there's a fair amount of hard pack that you need to put down. But you really kind of need to dig below. You need to dig up inch and a half, you know, into the soil and get back down to the soil, and, you know, put down some matting or put down something, you know, or you can put the stone and then hard pack under it or over it and not put any fabric down. But, you know, again, we're battling the weeds and growth on it. But the path itself needs to be reestablished. You're not gonna get it back any other way unless you go back and reestablish that path. You know, in the last meeting, Gordon brought up, or May 3rd meeting, Gordon brought up, well, it means we have to maintain it. I agree. You know, we need to maintain it, but you know, that's why we're in this. That's why we're here with the problem now, is because, you know, we wanted this path. I think it was actually a discussion when we got the oil spill money as to putting this path in there. We happened to cut some sort of a deal on delinquent taxes and we got the path without spending that money. But, yes, it's going to take maintenance, but the path itself needs to be reestablished, Martha. So you're talking, basically pulling that path down 1.5 inches down into the soil and putting down stone and then hard pack.
So you'd remove what's there and start over, basically.
For the most part.
Mhm. And could the road crew do most of that work? Or would you have to hire someone else?
I would hire somebody else, just because you're going to pull the road crew off for 2 weeks, and then you lose 2 weeks of road maintenance, which we really can't. We just can't do at this point.
So Dave, how can that, let's say that happens and that whole thing is renovated and done over. How is that maintained going forward so that we don't have to do this every how many years?
Really want to know the answer to that, Mary?
That's what I'm asking, Dave. Yes.
So I personally think at some point in the near future, and I don't think this is a very huge expense, but I think that John is going to need to bring on a summertime person. Can be a college kid. I don't think it needs to be an exorbitant rate, but certainly I see it in the newspapers surrounding the area, whether that be Hartford, Hanover, Windsor. There's all types of summer type help. I don't think it needs to be, extremely professional help. I think it can be college age kid. We already have a tremendous amount of staff in the summertime with the rec center with these particular types of kids. We use them for, the campers, but, I think that John's going to have to work into his recreation budget. And if there's anybody that has some leeway there, as far as, offsetting programs and expenses and such with user fees or whatever, he's going to need to take a very strong look at that. And, I think that, we have a buildings and grounds person, but if I've just spent, a couple of days just simply walking around Damon Hall and the rec center and the activity center. And, the buildings and ground person is meant for the buildings and grounds. And on top of that, he cleans them, which has been critical during the pandemic. So between cleaning them and cleaning the outside and doing what he's doing, there's not a whole lot of space for anything else. But if you have a college kid or even two in the 10-year plan that Rob Andraheg has set out, you've got some college kids available for Foster Meadows, the North Hartland Fields, which are also showing strain, and Sumner's Falls. I think ultimately you're going to need to look at that. But I would just simply start with Foster Meadows and even the North Hartland School. I think John's going to need to think seriously, or him and Jenna are going to have to get out there and do it themselves, as to how we're going to maintain these fields. And, I'll be honest with you, the walking path isn't the only issue. We're spending time out at North Hartland, with the surfaces out there with the fencing. There's been some stuff lost and it's expensive to claw back. But, if you look at his own playgrounds and the grass coming up around, and through the wood chips and stuff, I'm shaking my head and I'm, at a loss because I've been talking to John about this for, 1.5 years, 2 years, but, it's always been someone else and that someone else has always had too much to do and things have, it's literally like a farm. If you don't keep up with it, then, you lose a little bit each year. And I think that that's kind of what's happened. So that's as short as an answer as I can say, but
Dave, how does one maintain a hard packed or gravelled surface.
No, it's the same as a road. I mean, Dave's
So
talking about digging down, creating a substructure. And every once in a while, it's got to have either more hard pack or some sort of grading. I mean, there's small enough utility vehicles that can do that work.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, it's worked, but again, I think we're starting to, look at things that, ultimately we finally need to kind of catch up on. And we're having this discussion with the roads, the buildings and everything else. I think that ultimately there's no shame in John having a small utility vehicle, a little, those John Deere things that are bigger than a golf cart, but just on 4th of July you can use it, but you can put a York rake behind that, and you can basically grade the track and some other things. Now I will admit, I have had John speak to Hartford, who's got a lot of this over at their baseball fields, their Maxim Fields or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
They've got a lot of that, and it's tough to keep up. There's, if you want to track, there's other material, there's pavement and as such, but I don't dare say asphalt on a meadow field in Hartland, but that still takes maintenance. I walk on one over in Wilder, and their path over there is gonna, is cracking, is gonna need maintenance. That's an asphalt one, but either way, it like anything else that we have, including Foster Meadow, Sumner's Falls, is ultimately takes maintenance and someone somewhere to do some of that, which is why if we don't want that, then let's admit that we don't want the path. But it came out with great fanfare and was spoken highly of by Hartland, and it does get used, including by myself. So
Okay. Bill.
I have some pretty strong thoughts here. If one happens to drive down Route 5 into Windsor, opposite the shopping plaza, is one of the entrances to Paradise Park. We generally see 5 to 6 to 10 vehicles parked in that area with people walking and using that. I say that because I really feel that we're being short-sighted. I mean, what is the vision that we have for our public spaces? I mean, what is the chance and opportunity to use those public spaces for well-being and health of individuals? I can remember how shocked I was when we first reviewed the Three Corners intersection project. And this is true today, that some of my predecessors on the board did not include any money for finishing that green space. So I think we as a board have to go back to that question of, are we visualizing spaces like Foster Meadow, the other public areas that we have, as places we would like our citizens and surrounding citizens in the communities to use? I'll lastly say I have been, like everyone else, I imagine, looking at ARPA and trying to sort of say what might be a project in this area that could boost, and then we're faced with a budget to maintain, much like Dave started alluding to. Is it likely to be the rec department? So I feel strongly that we should, use, I'm reading the words, we recommend that 20 grand be used or saved for Foster Meadow. So it's not spending it tomorrow, it's spending it, I think, with great prudence in the future. But I do feel that you, Mary, you used the word vision right now. This is one of those certain times where what is our vision? What do we see for our town having spaces that are usable by the general public and safe spaces to use from an ADA perspective?
Yeah, I agree. Because one thing about the Foster Meadow walking path is it's a good place for people who have arthritic knees. You know, it's very and it's not challenging, right? It's pretty flat, and I like that. And I don't know, for wheelchair access to be fully ADA accessible, I don't think it was ever built to accommodate wheelchairs, and I'm wondering if we should consider that. I do want to maintain this walking path. So how we do it going forward, that might be the discussion we need to continue rather than whether we want it or not. And I think if we had a poll right now, we'd probably all want to continue it. Nobody wants to throw it up. Am I wrong about that? Okay, so Curtis, Martha, what do you think? You want to keep it?
Absolutely. I think it's a wonderful resource.
And I think-
Accessible in an accessible location.
Yeah,
Great.
right. And Phil, I'm going to guess you want to keep it. Yes, okay. All right, so we can maybe continue that conversation at another meeting. You don't have a motion down here, Dave, so you're not expecting us to take a motion on that, right?
Actually, that was a oversight on my part, but
I do want a motion.
I absolutely want a motion from you guys next meeting. Otherwise, it's too late. So you need to make it
I'll
before
tell
the
you.
fiscal.
I'll tell you, I 100% agree with Dave and John's assessment of the situation. And I get what you're saying, Mary, about how there might be different ways of implementing it and all of that. And those are maybe things we can help offer advice to Dave if and when he wants it as he's spending the funds. But I think the funds are a good investment. They're funds that John sought them out and he got them. And I think as the part of his responsibilities as the director of the Department of Recreation, as we hope his responsibilities continue to grow in that position, being able to allocate funds like this that he receives is a really key part of that. And I would be inclined to just take John and Dave's recommendation. It seems really carefully done. For me, it's really important the percentage of it that goes to people who have economic challenges, and that seems really appropriate. And then once we get past that scholarship portion, making sure we maintain that walking path that's really integral to the seniors in town, I know they use it a lot, is really what seems to me a clear next priority. So I fully support these distribution of funds.
Okay, so Dave wants a motion. I'd like to entertain a motion.
I would make a motion that we allocate the $42,000 of grant revenue as described in the manager's notes in the second paragraph under recreation. Should I spell it out or just read it out?
Yeah, you're gonna need to read it out, Phil, for the minutes, in case our auditors have a question on this. And where it says walking path, if you could also just add the word fencing to that as well. That'd be great.
Okay. Martha, did you find out where I'm at on the manager's notes?
You're
Okay,
muted, Martha.
Sorry. I can just take that language from the notes and have that be in the motion.
okay,
Is
so
that correct?
I'll say it out loud, but that's,
Okay.
I'm reading it. That we use the 42,000 as follows: $10,000 to be used for general recreation scholarships $5,000 to be used for scholarships specifically for the winter skiing program, $20,000 to be used or saved for the walking path and fence around the Foster Meadows. And finally, that $7,000 to be used, saved for playground equipment and or court resurfacing.
So I need to have you edit one thing, Phil. When it says fence, just use the word fencing. We'll
Yeah,
be
we
fine.
don't want it to sound like we're fencing the whole Foster Meadows.
Correct. We are not fencing Foster Meadows. For
I told
fencing,
her
for
she could reach
fencing,
out.
whether it be basketball courts or tennis courts.
So we're using $20,000 used or saved for the walking path around Foster Meadows, as well as fencing around the basketball and tennis courts. No,
Sure.
Okay.
We're wearing Dave down. He gave in on that point. Wow.
I think maybe
I
even
mean-
just, I would say maybe even just fencing.
That's all you need. But just fencing will be fine. But since it worked, I'm not gonna complain, but we'll,
Fencing is a sport. So. Gotcha, Curtis. You never thought of that. Okay, so is there a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Martha. Does anyone have some more discussion? How about from the public? You want to raise your hand? We can unmute you. Okay, seeing no raised hands, I'll call for a vote on the motion before us. Phil?
Curtis, I.
Okay,
Still I, yeah.
Martha, aye.
Mary, aye. Motion carried. Thank you. And now we have a very thrilling update on COVID-19 by Dave Ormiston.
yes, and this is just a discussion, and it's just kind of an add-on to the 4th of July. But as we move again towards the 4th of July, we're going to ourselves kind of slowly open things up. I'm going to look for Damon Hall between June 18th and July 1st to be open to vaccinated people, under the CDC guidance, which would be no masks needed or distancing. But certainly if you're unvaccinated, you would need to wear the mask and distance. We're not going to have a way to tell, but we're okay with that, again, based upon the CDC guidance. So Damon Hall and other facilities will follow that. Library will be obviously a little bit different, and they're a little bit slower in the opening.
What, excuse me,
we
Dave,
will-
why are they obviously different? They're not obviously different, but go ahead.
Kind of, you can always attend a trustees meeting. They are a little different. They have their own board, and that's what that board and librarian have decided to do, and that's what we'll go with.
Yeah.
Outside of that, some of the other activities, there's been an exercise group through the rec department. There's the bone builders and such. Eileen's been asking relentlessly when we're going to allow the bone builders back. I'm not ready to allow them back into Damon Hall, but I certainly at this point would entertain and allow them to use the Foster Meadow Fields. They had started to kind of use the library last year at this time, and we kindly asked them to refrain for several reasons. I think we're at a point where they can resume if they want, certainly not in weather like today, but if the weather allows, that they can do that outside. The exercise group by Richard Greenlee I would think in July can resume, and there is a karate class. They can resume outside, and we'll just have to kind of keep an eye on the fall as to whether we can move them inside or not. We are still going to hold off on rentals of both the rec center and Damon Hall, again, to see what the fall brings. But certainly we will start to, allow for activities that we didn't allow for, and you'll see Damon Hall become a little bit more liberal as well. Lastly, Martha, you're going to like this one. Curtis, I think this may allow for a compromise here. If not, we can always wait. But I think that our meeting, which is actually July 5th, will get kicked to July 6th. It's just too crazy around the 4th of July. But the second meeting in July, which I believe is July 19th, I would suspect we could come back to in-person meetings. Curtis, I think you said you might be away that week. If you are, I think we are going to try a kind of a hybrid where we're working with CATV to see if we can still do the remote meetings, but also meet in person, so that those people that have been a part of our meetings that like to meet remotely still can and somehow participate, yet we still meet in person. So I think that we can shoot for that for the second meeting in July. Curtis, as long as that works for you, I think.
I think I'm back by then. I think it's the weekend that I'm back. But I did want to say one thing. That sounds good to me, Dave. I did want to say one thing real quick. Could we give the bone builders maybe a time when the pavilion over by the playground isn't in use, so they could be out of the sun or something?
Yeah, I think we could do that. I would have to talk to the only. We do run into an issue in come July, late June, with our summer camp uses that area really kind of continuously. So it would need to maybe be, I'd have to, that might be a little tricky, but I can talk to John and see if that's something that would work for them. I'd be willing to allow them to use the gazebo there and do the bone builders.
Okay, thank you, Dave, for that very interesting update.
I'm not keeping you on the edge of your seat.
Yes, I can't wait to hear the next saga for the bone builders. What's going to happen there? So, and now we're on to your notes, Dave.
Three Corners intersection project. So let me back up just a second. So I put this off just to allow Rob to move on. So to everybody's dismay about the picnic tables out of Sumners Falls, I have been talking to staff for several weeks now about changing out those picnic tables. So we're not too cheap to spend the $50. We do plan on getting those swapped out. Not entirely sure why we haven't at this point in time, but that's kind of an internal issue. But just know that that's we're aware of it, and it's on the schedule there. Three Corners intersection, we finally got through the right-of-way process. We did run into a few hiccups there, but I think the state of Vermont was good enough to kind of make some provisions for us to move on without having to revisit the easements that we've already signed with the people in the intersection. So there is one easement that we do need to get. It's primarily because of the utility burial from the Sumner's Mansion there. So we will move forward with that. We did kind of finalize the design with Green Mountain Power, and Dan Peck from VHB has moved on to finalizing things with the utility companies. So that is moving along. The fact that we got through the right-of-way is a good sign. And again, at this point, we're kind of working with the utilities and trying to get to the final design to actually submit to the state of Vermont for our 1111 permit, which is very important. But slowly but surely, we do continue to move along. Highway Department, I've got some good news. FEMA, no sooner did I type up and send out the town manager update. I got an email from FEMA. They closed out the project. They obligated the money to the state of Vermont. So we may actually see this before the end of the fiscal year. We may see it in the next couple of weeks. It's in the state of Vermont's hands, but that is a very good sign. We can breathe easier. So that has moved forward, and I did speak to the state of Vermont, and they are trying to execute the Martinsville Road grant money as well. So it is coming our way soon, just a matter of how soon. But that's all very good news. Other thing I want to say is that Travis Beebe, he was with us maybe a year and a half, didn't leave us for D&D excavation. Pretty sad to see him go. He was a young Hartland kid, really good guy. Whole family is good people. I wish him well. He does want to drive. He did get a CDL license for an 18-wheeler. I think that's where his heart is. So he went to D&D. He'll drive theirs from time to time, gain the experience. And again, we wish him well, and sorry to see him leave. Delinquent taxes, what's called a demand letter went out to the delinquent property tax owners. The demand letter is basically stating that you need to come into the town offices and you need to address your delinquency, whether that be through an arrangement with myself, the delinquent tax collector, or you need to pay it in full, or you're going to go to tax sale. We have gotten 2 people that have come in. It's good because just good for these people to address it. They haven't addressed it in the past. However, some of the big heavy hitters that owe us significant amount of money, we have not heard from yet. We pretty well talked about Old Home Day. The last thing I kind of want to hit on is fairly important. So we spent a lot of time talking about case management. I almost can't believe how this ended up, but the person that we were looking at who has the community nursing background did send me an email, and after the work that we put into it, due to childcare needs and other priorities, indicated that she was not able to give the time to this that she thought she might at this time, maybe later in the year towards the fall. So I kind of had a feeling that might happen, but I have reached out to HCRS, and HCRS does just this. They also have a statewide, or not a statewide program, but a program where they are embedded with certain police departments, 5 altogether. They have indicated to me that they are willing to provide case-by-case case management, literally on a case-by-case basis. And it will not be a charge to us, and we don't need to put together any additional paperwork. However, the person that would be in need of the case management would need to sign kind of a waiver with HCRS to, share information, due to HIPAA restrictions, but, that should be a fairly straightforward process. So they are willing to pick this up. They have some capacity, and, we can start with them with a little fanfare or discussion or arrangements with them. So I think that that's basically a good outcome from where we were at, and the unfortunate news that this person that we thought could do it provided provided me.
Yeah, I got a personal note from that person and they were pretty upset that they had to say no. Dave, who is ATRS?
HCRS. I forget what the actual, I'd have to Google what it actually stands for. I can't remember, but they're very active in Vermont, particularly in southern Vermont. They are one of the stakeholders that we would actually look to as an outlet for somebody in need of Merritt Campbell funding. We provided, or actually one of our recent Merritt Campbell recipients that we did reach out to case management for was a HCRS client, so to speak, and was reacquainted with the HCRS. They provide, those particularly with mental health needs, those with substance abuse needs, and other factors. They provide outreach to them and services to them. Very reputable organization, and again, they've been working with Westminster, Brattleboro, Windsor, Hartford, and there's one other town in there I can't remember, on outreach programs through the police, including Westminster State Police, and what I hear maybe soon to be Royalton Barracks Police as well.
Yeah, well, certainly the price is right. So that's great news. I will send you the name, as I'm sure you considered, who is another community nurse in town. So.
Anything else, Dave?
That's it.
Wow. Wow. Neil you had your hand up, but I think maybe that was to answer healthcare and rehabilitation services of Vermont. But just to check, Kyle, will you unmute Neil, please?
Yeah, it was just to tell you that.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that very much.
I get to type it all the time, so I know it well.
All right, Dave, Martha, yes?
Did I understand you, Dave, to say that our next meeting will be Tuesday, July 6th, instead of Monday?
No, we have one more meeting in June.
Oh, yeah, okay. But I mean the July meeting.
Based upon the motion at the organizational meeting, it was Mondays unless there is a holiday, then it was the Tuesday thereafter, I believe.
Oh, okay. So the 4th of July holiday is officially on Monday. Okay.
Oh,
All right.
is it?
For town employees, yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
our next meeting is June
21st.
21st. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I would, unless there's other questions, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn. All right, hearing none, we will continue this meeting until 10 o'clock this evening.
So moved.
Thank you, Curtis. Is there a second? Okay, the motion's failing. We're going to be on
Okay.
here.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. I'm sure we're all in favor.
And congratulations, Mary, on a fairly efficiently short meeting.
Well, I don't know that I can take any credit for that. So, but I appreciate it. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody.
It's all my so moved. We don't have to say the motion twice.